President, please be seated. The court is back in session, and the floor is given to the defense teams. First, the defense team for Mr. Nguyen Chia to put questions to this witness before another team. You may now proceed, International Deputy Co-Prosecutor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to respond to Judge Laverne. I do expect that we will be at lunchtime be able to deliver hard copies. We have to go through the same sort of process we did when we used to deliver hard copies, but because we're only talking about 16 pages, it won't take us that long, so I expect that we'll send around copies at lunchtime.
President, thank you for the information. You can proceed now, counsel for Mr. Nguyen Chia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Madam Witness. I have some questions that I would like to ask you this morning, and possibly also after the lunch. Before the break, you answered some questions in relation to the birth of your youngest child, who you said was born in the year of the snake. Your oldest child was born, if I'm correct, in 1962. But it is unclear from at least the English translation of your statement whether it was your son who was born in 62 or your daughter. As you know, your son has given a statement, and he said that that he was born in 1962. Is that correct? Was it your son who was born in 62?
Yeah.
Answer. The one who was born in 1962 was the son.
And your daughter, Sokni alias Chang, when was she born?
Answer. I could not recall exactly the year, but I only know that she was born in the year of Dragon.
I was born in the year of the dragon, that is 1964. In your statement to the investigators, you said that it was your daughter whom you took in 1970 to the forest. Was that the daughter who was born in 1964?
Yeah.
Answer. As I said, I do not recall the exact year. I recall that she was born in the year of Dragon, and I did not know the exact year at that time. And from my recollection, she was born in the year of Dragon. That is what I could tell you.
And just to be sure, it was her that you took with you in 1970 when you left for the Maquis, for the deep forest. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Answer. Yes. I had a daughter with me at that time. My son parted from me in Kampong Chnam, and later on we could see each other.
And your oldest daughter, who was born in '64, and whom you took with you into the forest, was she with you all the time up until the liberation of 1975?
Yeah.
Answer: yes. She was with me until that time, until 1975, after which she was assigned to work in a cooperative. She was then put in the children's unit.
And at one point in time, in the period of 75, 79, did she also end up working at the Ministry of Social Affairs?
Cha.
Answer: she was in that ministry as a medic. She has been in the medical profession since that time.
And is she at present still a medic or midwife in An Long Veng?
Cha.
Answer: yes, she is a midwife in An Long Veng to save people's lives. She is a midwife in the commune.
And your oldest son is, I understand, also still living and residing in An Long Veng. Is that correct?
Cha. Con.
Answer: my son passed away 3 or 4 or 5 years ago.
I apologize, Madam Witness. I hadn't realized that. In your statement to the investigators, you said that you joined the revolution in 1969, but that you went into the forest with your daughter in October 1970 in response to King Father's call. Can you explain to us, or do you remember why it was that it was King Father's call that made you go into the forest?
Cha. Ca nó.
Answer: the king father made a call in the period, and I noticed many people went into the forest, so I made a sacrifice to join the others into the forest.
But you said you joined the revolution already in 1969, a year earlier. Why was it then that late King Father's call convinced you to go into the Maquis?
Cha. Ca nơi cũng not hái nhâm.
Answer: I stated as such in my written record, but before that time I had been at home to earn a living, and I had been living with my children. I heard a call that we had to go into the market, and I went to the market with other people.
Late King Father Sihanouk visited the Maquis in 1973. Were you present during his visit?
Answer. Allow me to tell the court that I do not really understand about the presence of the late King Father. I do not understand your question. Peasant was saying that there was a call from the late King Father that everyone has to go into the marquee, and we had to join the call.
From all sides I hear, Mr. President, there was something wrong with the translation. I will repeat my question. Madam Witness, I asked you a question about the 1973 visit of late King Father Norodom Sihanouk to the Maquis, where he met, for instance, Pol Pot, Khieu Samphan. Were you present at this visit of late King Father in 1973?
Answer. When the late King Father visited us in the forest, I was with people and I was not in attendance. I do not know when the late King was there. I would like to tell the court that I have forgotten it. I did not pay attention to the visit of the late King Father, and as I said, I do not know when he was there.
I'm staying in this period with my later questions, but moving on in time, moving on to 1976. Do you remember King Father visiting Kampong Cham in 1976, and that a banquet was prepared to greet King Norodom Sihanouk?
Answer. I cannot recall it. I do not know whether the late King Father arrived at that place. I do not recall it.
Let me read from your statement that you gave. Maybe that will refresh your memory. It is E3/5294, English ERN 00360119, French 00367812, and Khmer 00348836. Question. Did you know about King Norodom Sihanouk's visit to Kampong Cham in 1976? And you answered, I know that they prepared a banquet to greet King Norodom Sihanouk, but I did not attend the banquet. Does that refresh your memory?
Answer. Because of my weak memory, I may have recalled it and I may not have recalled it. And at this time, I told you already that I cannot recall it. And as the statement in the written record, perhaps it is so, because I may have forgotten it.
Madam Witness, in the case file there is evidence to suggest that the late King Father visited various sites in Democratic Kampuchea around 5 or 6 times. Do you recall maybe any other visit to the area where you were working and living?
Mr. President, if counsel wants to ask about other visits, that's fine. I don't think he should lead the witness by vague, unspecified references to the case file, there being supposed evidence in the case file of other visits. If he has something specifically he wants to document, he wants to reference and ask the witness about, I think that's fine, but I don't think you should be characterizing the case file and trying to lead the witness.
I'll be happy to give a more specific reference, Mr. President. E3/7. Let me get back to that, and let me rephrase the question, Madam Witness. We just spoke about a visit to Kampong Cham of the late King Father in 76, and a banquet that may or not have been given to him. Do you recall any other visits of late King Father to other sites in the country between 75 and 79?
Answer. I do not recall it, the visit of the late King Father. I have a weak memory, and I am telling the truth. I will tell the court of what I know, and if I forget about something, I may not tell the court. Going back to that time, I was young, and perhaps when I made a statement, I had a better memory, and I would not tell the court if I do not recall something. Once again, I do not recall when the king visited the place.
No problem, Madam Witness. Let me return now to this period between 70 and 75 that you and your daughter were in the Maquis. This morning you answered questions, or you were telling something about the bombs that were dropped from the air by planes. During these bombs that were thrown out in the Maquis by the U.S. Air Force, was your daughter with you? Did you, together with your daughter, experience the bombs being thrown from the B-52 planes?
Yeah.
Answer. There were aerial bombardment, and the areas in the sector of 130 experienced aerial bombardment. So we fled and we hid ourselves in the bunkers. When we were in the bunker, we felt relaxed and relief. And when the airplanes did not notice the presence of people, they would not conduct the aerial bombardment. So the aerial bombardment happened at that time. There were aerial bombardment, as I said. Homes, houses of villagers were destroyed because of the aerial bombardment. Aerial bombardment were everywhere.
Were you able to observe many casualties because of these bombings?
Answer: yes, those who were in the bunker sometimes died, although they were there. There were many casualties. Cattle, cows, and water buffaloes died because of the bombing. I recall the event because that was the reality. I held my children's, my daughter's wrist and ran away. That was the reality.
Thank you, Madam Witness. I have an additional question about the period between 1970 and 1975. Your late son, Kepik Banak, in E335, gave some answers to questions in relation to that period. And I would like to read the question to him and his answer, and then ask you whether you remember anything about this. Mr. President, that is, as I said, E3/35, ERN English 003-46148, Khmer 003400568, and French 00367720. Your late son is being asked the question: did any foreigners ever visit XA 30 besides the senior leaders? And then your son answers, I saw Li Yun and Tam Van Dong. Li Yun came once. At that time I served him tea and gave him a massage. Tam Van Dong came twice. When those two persons came, I saw Pol Pot had a meeting with Le Yun and an interpreter. I did not know who that interpreter was. During the meeting, I heard those two persons talked about joining the Indochina Party, but Pol Pot refused to join it. The two persons spoke to each other seriously. At that time, I was near that place. Madam Witness, did your son ever tell you that he had overheard apparently a conversation between Pol Pot and the two top leaders of Vietnam, Le Yun and Pham Van Dong?
Answer: I would like to tell the court that my late son was not with me at that time. He was in the military, or perhaps he was with my husband. I did not know the affairs engaged by my late son. I was with my daughter, and we had different tasks to perform. I told repeatedly that my husband and I lived separately from each other, and it was the same case for my late son. I was only with my younger child and for the elder children, they were living in different places. Once again, I do not know about it. I have never met my late son, and he never told me about that particular matter.
I understand that you were not at the same time with him, but it seems to be a very interesting meeting in the forest. Are you sure he never told you about this, maybe after 1975 or after 1979? This meeting between the two top Vietnamese leaders and Pol Pot?
ចា
Answer: He never told me about it. I have never known or I have never been informed of such affairs by my late son. I lived far away from my late son, so I do not know about the so-called meetings.
I understand. Does the term Indochina Party mean something to you?
Answer: I cannot recall the Indochina Party. My supervisor discussed about work in the country, and as for foreign affairs, I have no idea.
I understand, Madam Witness. Your son, in this same statement on that same page, also spoke to the investigators about Grand Uncle Tuk, also known as Koi Tun. Do you remember Koi Tun? Did you know him at the time?
Squirrel.
Answer: Yes, I know Koi Tun, but he had a different task to do. We were friends, and I do not know other matters besides the case that we were friends.
Did you hear your husband ever speak in those years about Koi Tun? And I'm referring to the periods 70 and 76.
ចា
Answer: I frequently talk to him or mention to him that rather, I already told the court that my husband never discussed any task that he performed with me. We discussed about our family matters. As for Koi Tun, he was one of my friends and comrades. We chit-chatted with each other about our living matter or personal matters, but not about our tasks that we performed separately.
Did you, at the time, either from your husband or from someone else, that Koi Tun may have been responsible for staging a coup d'etat against the Democratic Kampuchea regime?
Answer: I do not know about it. No one told me about this.
you remember from those years the former leader of the East Zone, Sao Pim? Did you know him personally?
No, I didn't know Sao Pim.
Did you ever hear your husband speak about Sao Pim?
I have stated repeatedly when it came to work-related matters concerning senior leaders or zone leaders, he never spoke to me. And he was strict on the issue of confidentiality. Even if I was his husband, he did not mix the two matters together, that is, personal matters and work-related matters.
I understand. Let me read to you again an excerpt from the statement of your late son to the investigators. Maybe this is something that you heard from him later, after 1979, for instance. Mr. President, again, E3/35, English ERN 0034 6153, Khmer 0034 0566 and 67, and French 0036 7724 and 25. It's a rather long piece that I'm going to read to you, so I will do it slowly. And I'm waiting for the translators to catch up with me. Question to your late son. He's talking about the period 1977, mid-1978. After that, where did they send you to, and what did they have you do? After that, I went back to stay with my father in Stung village, east of Sung, which was the joint headquarters of the Central Zone and the East Zone. Sao Pim was the chairman and the commander of the zone. My father was the chairman of the Central Zone and the deputy commander of the zone military stationing at the front line. I was my father's driver and bodyguard. Question. When you worked with your father, did you see any noticeable events taking place? And Madam Witness, your son answers as follows. I recalled the purging event of East Zone cadres. The purging took place in two phases. In the first phase, there was an order from the center to arrest Heng Samrin. After receiving that information, my father went to meet with Sao Pim. My father told Sao Pim, "Brother, the upper echelon orders the arrest of Comrade Heng." Sao Pim replied, "So, Pok, you sent Ah Heng to my house." After my father informed Uncle Heng about that, Uncle Heng disappeared forever. At that time, Uncle Heng Samrin was the chairman of Sector 20 and of the Military Division Unit. The second phase was the purging of the zone leadership, the division, and the sector within the East Zone. The purging was carried out following a direct order from Son Sen. At that time, Son Sen came down to the headquarters personally accompanied by 2 truckloads of about 60 security guards in black uniform. At the same time, there were 2 tanks, led by Chen, dead or alive is not known, coming along to protect him. When Son Sen arrived, he ordered my father to call a meeting with the leaders and then arrested them all. At that time, Sao Pim was not there. I remember that 42 leaders, including their bodyguards, were arrested. I saw the arrests with my own eyes. Among those arrested, I knew Uncle Sot, the committee of Sector Preveng, Uncle Chan, alias Tu or Laet, the sector committee and the zone deputy, but I did not know which sector, and Ta Kim, the chairman of the military division of the East Zone. The arrests of those people took place in 1978. Madam Witness, this is a long excerpt from the statement of your late son. I realize, again, it's a long time ago and that you have difficulties with your memory. But when I read this to you, does that somehow jog your memory?
I have already told you that I did not know these kinds of matters. My son, my late son, always stayed with my late husband, and he was also his driver. However, when it came to the meetings at the East Zone, for instance, I did not have any knowledge about it. And I swear to you that I did not know anything about it.
A more specific question, did your husband ever talk to you about Heng Samrin?
Yes, he used to. He referred to him as brother Heng Samrin. But personally, I did not know brother Heng Samrin. I never met him. But I used to hear my late husband refer to him as brother Heng Samrin. I never knew him and I never saw him.
Do you know whether your late son ever spoke to what happened during the DK regime with your daughter, the daughter that we just spoke about? Did he, your late son, or your husband ever spoke about these matters to your daughter, the one who was born in 1964?
I am not sure. But could you please repeat your question, as I did not actually fully understand it?
ចាប់អត់បាន
My question was about Sao Pim and Heng Samrin, and I asked you whether you know anything about this. However, you said that's beyond my knowledge. This information is coming from your late son. Have you ever heard him talk to your daughter about what happened in 1978 in the East Zone? Do you know whether she knows these things that your son spoke about?
President witness, please wait. And Council Copper, could you enlighten the chamber whether the last series of questioning is related to the facts being presented before this chamber.
Oh, it most certainly is, Mr. President. It's in relation to the most important chapter still coming, the internal purges in the East Zone. What happened in the East Zone? As we all know, the husband of this witness played a very important role in fighting with the rebel forces in the East Zone. So I think the questions to this witness in relation to this topic are extremely relevant, and so I think I should be able to ask this, especially because the testimony that I'm confronting her with is coming from her son.
President, witness, you do not need to respond to the last question that was put to you by the defense counsel, as it was not related to the fact being presented and confronted before this court at the moment.
Again, a double standard, Mr. President, because the prosecution is allowed to ask all kinds of questions about purges in the North Zone.
President interrupts, and defense counsel, please move on to another line of questions which are related to the fact being debated right now. We, of course, have heard the questioning from the co-prosecutors, and their focus was not mainly on the East Zone. However, there were a few questions related closely to Cham Ka Le, and the main focus was on the first January dam work site, which was located in the Central Zone. So please try to be straight in your questioning.
One last question, Madam Witness, in relation to this topic. It's not about the East Zone, but it is about a decision coming from another country. At the time, and we're talking February, March, April 1978, you heard about a meeting of the Central Committee in February 1978 of the Vietnamese Communist Party, where they decided to proceed with plans to provoke an internal uprising led by So Pim, while keeping in reserve an alternate plan to topple the DK regime through direct intervention.
President, Madam Witness, please wait. And the Deputy Co-Prosecutor, you have the floor.
I don't object to counsel asking questions on this subject, but he's leading the witness. He's asking a leading question, and he's not identifying if he has a document that has some connection to this witness, he can ask her about it. I don't think that's likely that this witness would have any connection to it, but if he is going to ask questions from a document, he should present it. He shouldn't be leading the witness like this.
I think I'm entitled to ask a question whether this witness, through her husband, had any knowledge of a Vietnamese decision to start an internal uprising. I think that is a perfectly appropriate question.
There's no evidence of that. If you have evidence of that and you want to ask the witness, identify the evidence.
I can, if you would like to know. E3/7340, also probably better known as E307/5.2.7, and there's quite some other material in the case file as well, indicating that there was a fourth plenum of the Central Committee of the Vietnamese Communist Party in which it was decided to start an internal uprising led by Salpim, and that was a direct cause to start armed clashes, armed conflict with Salpim. So any knowledge that this witness, through her husband, might have had, I think, is extremely relevant.
Mr. President, can I ask that you just identify, are you referring to this book written by Burglar that looks like it was something printed off of someone's computer, or is this a different document? I just want to know what you're asking the witness. Are you asking her to comment on a book written by someone?
No, I'm asking her to tell us if she knows anything about this February 1978 decision. And if she doesn't, she can say that she doesn't know.
President Defense Counsel, please provide details of the document that you referred to, in particular the year and numbers in relevant languages.
It has now an E3 number. It's E3, like I said, E3/7340. More specifically, it was originally filed as E307/5.2.7. The relevant ERN numbers are 01002002 up until 8. At present time, there's only an English version available. It is an excerpt from a book by an American scholar called William Duker, Duiker, which is called China and Vietnam, the Roots of Conflict. However, it's not only this scholar, it's also Chanda, who refers to this February 78 decision. It's also newspaper clippings, especially the Far Eastern Economic Review that refer to the 78 February decision. So I think it's quite commonly known, and if that is the case, I think I'm entitled to ask this question to this witness.
Your Honor, I simply don't see any basis for asking this witness about a supposed decision of the Vietnamese party that's in a book. How would this witness have any knowledge? I mean, there's been nothing that establishes any foundation for asking questions like this.
President Judge Laverne, you have the floor.
Maybe for the purposes of clarity, can you specify, Counsel Koppe, exactly which meeting you are referring to. I didn't understand if it was a meeting of the Central Committee of the CPK or if this was a meeting of the Vietnamese Communist Party. So can you please just, then we will see if you can put the question or not.
It was a meeting of the Central Committee of the Vietnamese Communist Party, also referred to as the 4th Plenum, February 1978, in which very important decisions were made, including an internal uprising led by So Pim, the leader of the East Zone, and if that would fail, intervention through invasion. That decision might have been the reason for the armed clashes in the East Zone, for which her husband is obviously partly responsible. So I'm asking whether she knows anything about this extremely important...
Council Koppe. If I understand well, you have no minutes of this meeting, nor any kind of official report coming from the Vietnamese authorities. You are just referring to it through books, but I don't know what are the specific references that are contained in these books. So could you please shed some light on this?
It's correct, I don't have any minutes of this meeting. The Vietnamese authorities are not very happy to share minutes of their meetings with us. However, scholars, including somebody who has been testifying here as an expert, Nayan Chanda, refers to this decision already in publications in '78, that this very important 4th plenum of the Central Committee got together and made this crucial decision to end the democratic regime, the regime of democratic Kampuchea. So it is, I think, public knowledge. Scholars and journalists refer to it.
You're referring to Chandler or to Nayan Chanda? Whom are you referring to? And do you have any specific references regarding this particular meeting?
Yes, I just refer to, I think, the most eminent American scholar on Vietnam, William Duker. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I refer to Nayan Chanda, who gave testimony as to the nature of the armed conflict in case 001. And I'm referring not only to his book, but also to publications in the Far Eastern Economic Review in 1978, which are, I think, partly on the case file.
Fine. Well, can you please provide us the exact ERNs of these references, if possible?
I just gave the English ERN reference of the chapter of William Duker's book. I can do that again, if you like. It's ERN 01002002 up until 01002008.
Fine. But please, specifically, what is the specific reference? Here I see there are about 8 pages of, or 6 pages of ERNs here, but what is the exact reference to that meeting?
I'm very happy to read the exact quote from William Duker's book. And that quote is as follows. The rationale for action in Cambodia was clear. Evidence was accumulating that Pol Pot was firmly in Beijing's camp and that the latter would attempt to manipulate the situation in Cambodia to realize its own foreign policy objectives in Southeast Asia. If Hanoi hoped to prevent China from stabilizing its position in Phnom Penh, it must act soon. An open invasion by Vietnamese troops would be the most decisive solution, but it could cause serious international repercussions and possibly direct confrontation with China. A general uprising led by anti-Pol Pot rebels in Cambodia and supported discreetly by the SRV was less risky and certainly less costly, but success would be less certain. Now it comes, Judge Lavergne. In the end, the plenum decided to proceed with plans to provoke an internal uprising led by Sao Pim while keeping in reserve an alternative plan to topple the Phnom Penh regime through direct intervention.
That still does not provide me with the exact reference on which this author is basing himself.
He has knowledge, and so has Chanda, about the outcome of this fourth plenum of the Central Committee of the Vietnamese Communist Party. Again, they are both eminent scholars. One of them is regarded an expert by this chamber. So I think, again, there seems to be sufficient knowledge and sources about this February 78 meeting.
Yeah.
Fine. Can you then explain to us how this witness today could possibly answer the questions that you are putting to her with regard to this topic? That is to say, her knowledge of this possible meeting of the Central Committee of the Vietnamese Communist Party. Do you seriously believe that this witness can answer that question?
Maybe not this witness, but her husband certainly could. And maybe her husband spoke to her or her son, and she has heard it. This February decision, again, is widely known, discussed in the media in '78. So maybe this witness, at the time or later, heard her husband speak about this February 78 Vietnamese decision to start an internal uprising. If she doesn't, she can say it.
President, the Deputy Co-Prosecutor, you have the floor.
Just very briefly, it should be noted on the record that author cites no sources whatsoever for this purported discussion at the fourth plenum. If there are widespread media reports of this event, which I doubt, counsel should be citing them. He keeps mentioning Chanda, but he hasn't given us any cite, so I'd ask us to give a cite on that. But I think the ultimate question is I don't see any foundation for asking this witness about this subject.
I suppose it's kind of tragic that after 7 years we're discussing this very important decision and that nobody in this courtroom seems to know about it. So again, I think I'm perfectly entitled to ask this question, and if the witness doesn't know, she will say so.
I just want to react to your first part. If you say that, if you reference people and it is contested, or if you reference books, it's an established practice that you have to cite these references. So that much is clear, no matter how many years we have been in this courtroom. Now, as to the question, I leave it to the President.
President, Madam Witness, you do not need to respond to that question as there is no base for the witness to do so.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your ruling. Madam Witness, you said in your testimony you also spoke at one point in time to Ingtarit when she was visiting the dam. Do you remember giving this testimony?
Spoken repeatedly on this issue, that is when she went to visit together with a delegation, and she and the delegation were warmly greeted. That's all I can remember, and I can recall the details of the visit. And of course, I spoke about this repeatedly on the 2 or 3 occasions that she went to visit Chamkale, and that is the best recollection that I can give it to you.
I understand it's a long time ago, but if I will try nevertheless. Do you remember if she mentioned during her visit, her earlier visit to the Northwest Zone, did she ever speak about her experiences while visiting the Northwest Zone?
On the issue of the visit to the Northwest Zone, I have no knowledge of the visit. President, it is now appropriate to have our lunch break. We'll take a break now and return at 1:30. Court officer, please assist the witness and the waiting room for the witnesses and experts during the lunch break, and invite her as well as the TPO staff back into the courtroom at 1:30 this afternoon. Security personnel, you are instructed to take Kee Sampon to the waiting room downstairs and have him return to attend the proceedings this afternoon before 1:30. The court is now in recess.
សូមចេញក្រោកឈរ